Namaskar and welcome to Indian Diplomacy, show on India's national broadcaster Doordarshan about Indian foreign policy, India's international relations and key trends and developments around the world that have an impact on India's rise. Viewers, in this episode, we are looking at the emergence of a multipolar world order. World politics is never static and orders come and go and shift into new orders. So we are making the call in this show that a multipolar order is upon us. So what is this multipolar order? How is it different from the previous orders? What is India's unique role in bringing about a multipolar order, and what will be the future of this multipolar order? These are some of the big questions we're taking up in the show. And to discuss this, I'm very privileged to reintroduce you to one of our distinguished guests who has been on Indian diplomacy before, Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar. Ambassador Sajjanhar was India's ambassador to three countries, Kazakhstan, Latvia and Sweden, and is a very respected commentator and thinker on India's role in the world. Sir, welcome back to Indian diplomacy.
Thank you very much. Great pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Ambassador, if you look at the world today, I mean, people are saying that there are two great powers, China and the United States, and then the unipolar era of US-led world order of post-1991 is over. And some are saying, therefore, it's a bipolar. There are only two power centers. But we in India are pushing for the ideationally as well as materially for a multipolar order where there are at least 5-6 power centers in the world, including India. So your thoughts on this notion of a multipolar order? Many times you hear world leaders mentioning it, commentators talking about it, and it's often a buzzword. So your thoughts on this multipolar order, and which are the power centers apart from China and the US, in your view, which are now rising, that can together be then seen as part of a multipolar order?
Thank you very much, Professor Chaulia, for inviting me again to the show. It's always a pleasure to be with you. And I think the subject that we are going to be discussing today is very important because there are huge changes that are taking place in the world. There is tremendous flux, there is tremendous turbulence in the world. And that is whether it is in the area of security or it is in the area of geoeconomics. You are very right when you say that, the unipolar moment that existed really from 1991 after the disintegration of the Soviet Union, that is well behind us, because we saw what happened in 2001. We saw after the 9/11 attacks, and then the American influence and the American power globally, that also came down very significantly with the international economic and financial crisis in 2007-2008. Yeah. And we have, of course, been seeing that China's power, China's role, influence, that has been growing. And we have seen that in the recent past also. But I would still say that it is not a bipolar world order. It's not a duopoly, because there are still huge differences, disparities between the United States and China, whether it is in the as far as the size of the economy is concerned, as far as expenditure on military is concerned. So on a variety of factors, I think it is not a bipolar. Although China also maintains, China says that it does not want to have, be a hegemon in the world to replace the United States. It also wants a multipolar world order. But that is not what is seen on the ground. And so I think it is that is what India has also been maintaining all the time, that China talks about a multipolar world order, but it is angling for a unipolar Asia, because
they don't want to share power.
It doesn't want to share power. It doesn't want to share influence. So of course the movement is in that direction. And I would say, your question was, which are the big centers of power? And I think if we look around in the different continents, power has been growing as far as different countries are concerned. I would say after Russia and the United States, if you look at the comprehensive power index, so to say, not only in terms of GDP, not only in terms of military power, not only in terms of political influence, but also in other areas, then of course we have seen that Russia is a significant power, so that would be a significant pole. As far as India is concerned, that of course, as the fourth largest economy in the world, getting on to be the third largest economy, its cultural influence, its political impact across the world, the fastest growing major economy, a big technological power. So I think India is definitely up there. If we look at other countries in Asia, then definitely I could put Japan in the same category. I could put possibly Indonesia in the same category from ASEAN. Maybe Vietnam could also, in the future,
eventually,
could become. Then going to Africa, Egypt would be a good contender. Nigeria, South Africa. And of course, going to South America, of course, it would be countries like Mexico, Brazil. Brazil is the largest country, Argentina. So some of those countries are really knocking at the doors, I could say, in terms of becoming significant poles.
Right. So it's a crowded field with many contenders to great power status. India, of course, is considered to be the one with the strongest chance and the best capabilities. Now, Ambassador, I want to reflect a bit on India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. Subramaniam Jaishankar's recent remarks. And I quote him, he says, it's a world full of economic volatility and political uncertainty. You mentioned that. Some people call it the VUCA, VUCA world. And then he says, what is needed to tackle these uncertainties and these volatilities is a multipolar world with strategic autonomy and cooperation among key member states. So I want you to take up these two themes, especially the concept of strategic autonomy, because presumably you can be rich and powerful and you can have military muscle and even maybe soft power, but if you are not acting autonomously but are already under an existing great power or a junior partner or an alliance partner, then probably you are unlikely to become a great power, right? So that's an important element where he's saying that you must have strategic autonomy, and that is the basis on which you can have multipolar order. And of course, we are very familiar with the concept of strategic autonomy. And not only India, I mean, many countries talk about it. France talks about strategic autonomy. Germany, the German foreign minister was here recently and they were talking about strategic autonomy. So does Brazil, and many of the other power centers are talking about. So why is this so important, and which among these set of varied players you think is genuinely strategically autonomous today and therefore has a better chance of becoming a great power?
Yeah, thank you for that question. When we're talking about which could possibly be, potentially be big significant poles in the world, we did not take up Europe, but the countries that you mentioned, France, Germany, Italy, UK, I think these are prime contenders as far as different poles of the world are concerned. But you're very right. I think there cannot be multipolarity, there cannot be an independent pole if there is not a strategic autonomy as far as that country is concerned. Because what does really multipolarity means? That a country should have independent agency to take decisions, that it should not be, it should not really be influenced to change its strategic choices, for instance. So I think in that sense, strategic autonomy is absolutely essential. It is the sine qua non for definition of a separate pole, multipolarity, and being an independent actor, an independent player, so to say, as far as this is concerned. And I would say, meaning you did mention about some of these countries, France and Germany, etc. But you see, so far we have seen that although European Union and Europe in that sense was autonomous in terms of taking economic decisions, but as far as its security was concerned, it was hugely dependent upon the United States. It is only now that it is really coming out of that and deciding that they have to invest, they have to spend, they have to become self-sufficient as far as their security is concerned. So I think there cannot be any multipolarity without a strategic autonomy. And of course, there has to be cooperation because, all these multi-poles, the different poles, they should not really be acting against each other. They must be collaborating because the whole idea is that you cooperate between different countries and you have a more peaceful, more stable, and more prosperous society, community, and the world. So I think to respond to your question as to which are the countries which have the capacity, which are taking, which are utilizing the independent agencies to take decisions for themselves, definitely India and Russia come in that category. And I think after the advent of President Trump just a few months ago, and particularly over his actions over the last 4 or 5 months, I think more and more countries are being forced to determine for themselves in terms of their future course of action. For instance, Japan, for instance, South Korea, for instance, Australia. Even as far as India is concerned, let me put it this way. There are no dependencies as far as India is concerned on the United States. But of course, we want, it is a comprehensive global strategic partnership. We want good relations. But the recent tariffs that have been imposed on India, that has very badly dented and shaken the trust that existed between the two countries.
But we are very keen on maintaining our autonomy, and that's an important point, and that gains stature and respect in international affairs. Ambassador, there's also this phenomenon of small group gatherings of non-Western countries, plurilateral, small group, multilateral, whatever we want to call them. And we have two prominent ones. One is the BRICS group, which has expanded now to 10 countries. And there's also the 10-member Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So whenever these summits happen and all these non-Western leaders gather, there is always the word multipolar is branded about quite widely. And most of the leaders' statements and the commentaries about, look, here is the multipolar world order right in front of you. It's visible when these leaders are shaking hands and there is bonhomie among themselves. So these clubs or groups, how important are they? In other words, the format of engagement is not just by every country among these list of emerging powers just becoming more powerful that we have a new order, right? New order, like you said, also involves cooperation among key states, as Dr. Jaishankar was also saying. So how important is this? And your assessment, you've been a long time observer and participant in the SCO process and all that. So your observation on both BRICS and SCO, and are these actually reflections of an emerging multipolar order, or are they actually harbingers? Are they going to create a multipolar order?
Okay, I think we have to see as to how these two institutions have evolved. One is a security organization, that is the SCO, when it was established in 2001. Let's say from 2001 till 2025, if you were to say as to what are any significant results that you can show, any achievements as far as SCO is concerned, you will be hard put to, put your finger on
a very concrete,
concrete achievements. Maybe the regional anti-terrorism structure, anti-terrorist structure in Tashkent in 2004, it was established. Then it could you could say that, but otherwise no. Right now, this picture that you show behind you, and the results of the Tianjin summit, that is basically because of the circumstances that have appeared after Mr. Trump has come. I think he's been pushing back against all countries, and particularly as far as India is concerned, because we see that as far as Russia and China, they have been very close to each other, particularly after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. They have come particularly close to each other. But this was, something that countries are trying to find options, because if you get a pushback from there, you have to see what are the other options that are available. That having been said, let me say just 2 sentences about BRICS also. BRICS started its summit-level partnerships in 2009.
Yeah.
And 5 countries, at that time 4, then increased to 5, and South Africa was also inducted in 2010. But it was able to get some results done because it's an economic organization. And in terms of what are the other opportunities that can be made available for developing countries. So you have the new development bank or the BRICS bank and the currency reserve swap system. But coming to it now, whether it is BRICS with 10 countries or SCO with 10 countries, these are not coherent organizations. These are not compact organizations. So like photo ops of this nature would be useful, but I think photo ops do not
mean deep congruence of interest.
Yes, or a partnership make. In terms of, of course they are harbingers of a changing world order. But the fact that this is going to be, you mentioned about these being non-Western. India is particularly interested in keeping them non-Western, not making them anti-Western.
Right.
Now, China and Russia, which are members of both these, they would like these bodies, these organizations, to develop as anti-Western. But there are a number of countries in both these organizations which don't want them to be anti-Western. For instance, India is definitely there in BRICS. You have UAE. So far, even Brazil and South Africa were moderating influences. As far as SCO is concerned, you have the 4 Central Asian countries. They want good relations with the United States and with the West. India definitely wants good relations with the United States, and we are hopeful that this whole tariff issue will be able to resolve it in not too distant a future.
Right, yeah. So it's also a mistake, viewers. What Ambassador Sajjanhar is saying is to think of these groupings or these kind of, a popular photo ops as the symbol of some, changed era, because these countries also have internal contradictions. So we have to be very cautious in making judgments and not jump to hasty conclusions. Okay, Ambassador Sajjanhar, India is widely considered to be the country with the best chance to become a great power, equal of China and the US. I mean, in terms of all parameters, we have got the capabilities and the aptitudes for it. So, what are our strengths, in this emerging multipolar era? We already spoke about strategic autonomy, but what else you think is driving our rise, material as well as non-materially? And how is it linked to our ideational system, like our vision of the world? I remember reading Ambassador Shyam Saran's book, How India Sees the World, and he refers to the fact that in our cosmology, there are 7 dvipas, 7 continents. Jambu Dvipa, which is India, the Indian subcontinent, is only 1 out of 7. And we are happy to coexist with 6 or 7 other power centers in today's parlance, right? So we are happy with the multipolar order, isn't it? It's maybe in our DNA. We have never sought global conquest or unipolar or bipolar domination, right? So it looks like we have it within our, heritage also. So, but contemporary India, do tell our audiences what you think makes India the best contender for this great power status, and which will of course mean at least three big power centers in the next maybe 10-15 years, and then we can maybe expand from there to having 5 or 6 or 7.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a very important point. I think there are tangible reasons and there are also intangibles, as a result of which we think that, India would be a very, very strong contender. As far as the tangibles are concerned, of course, I have mentioned a few of them. As far as India's economic growth is concerned, it's moving fast, going to become the 3rd largest economy. But in addition to that, I think if you look at the political stability in the country, I think that's very important. When you see flux and change and even violent change in very many countries, then I think political stability, we've had it for the last 10, 11 years, and there is stability of decisions that have been taken. You look at the demography. India is one of the youngest countries with a median age of about 25 or 26, while all the others, whether it's in Europe, China, Japan, these are all graying economies, with the 44-year median age with all these countries. Then whether it is technology, it is India which took the Chandrayaan to the South Pole, the darker portion. You look at the DPI in terms of focusing on utilizing technology for the digital public infrastructure, UPI, etc. So I think there are, look at India's democracy. And that, I think these are many tangible, intangible. But you know what you mentioned about the civilizational heritage of India? I think that's very important, because what is the guiding principle as far as India is concerned? It is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. You remember when Prime Minister Modi went to the United Nations in 2014, his first address to the UN General Assembly in 2014, he referred to Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that we want to be friends with everyone. And this is exactly what you mentioned, that India is one of the poles and it is very happy to coexist. Now, India also doesn't only say, it does walk the talk. And I'll give you just one example, two examples. When the COVID-19 pandemic struck, and India was, technologically, again, that is its advancement, we were able to create our own vaccines. We started, I still recall, our vaccination program in the country on the 16th of January 2021. And our first consignment under the Vaccine Maitri initiative went out on the 20th of January 2021, 4 days after that. And I think it took the whole world also by surprise, whether it is the Prime Minister of Bhutan or the President of Brazil at that time. All of them said India is still going through its own vaccination process. But it has decided to share it with the other countries. In our own neighborhood, you see, whether it is Afghanistan, we don't have diplomatic relations with them. But when there was malnutrition, we shipped out 50,000 metric tons of wheat to them. So I think there are an umpteen number of the examples, the first responder that it goes. So I think civilizationally, India is very much comfortable with other people, with cooperation, with the collaboration. And that is what I think multipolarity is, that is what I think multi-alignment is, that we want to connect with other people, with other countries.
Yeah, and viewers, what you are hearing from Ambassador Sajjanhar is you also need to show leadership, and that's an important quality. And you need to have magnanimity, as a big power. And that needs to be shown through deeds, not just through words, because talk is cheap. Action speaks louder, and that's what India has been doing consistently as a voice of the global South for fellow developing countries, and that positions it, among other factors, as a lead contender to be a great power. Ambassador Sajjanhar, going back to the big picture now, we've spoken about all the different, rising powers. It's quite clear that we don't know whether the great powers will obstruct the path of these rising powers. In some cases, they may encourage them, but in other cases, they may try to suppress them. And we have, in the international relations literature, the concept of the Thucydides trap, because when a rising power challenges an existing hegemon, the existing hegemon may get jittery and may try to impose war or, put spanners in the wheel. So what is your reading of the geopolitical environment? It's quite turbulent and quite unpredictable today. These rising powers, including India, it's not going to be a smooth ride, right? I think there will be a lot of rough weather. There may even be conflicts and wars. We don't know, because generally when there is a power transition from one order to another, it can be violent also. So what is your reading of the obstacles and the opportunities that these rising powers have? And especially in the context of China-US rivalry, which is itself not clear-cut, but it is there. So is there a visible path for all these countries, or do we actually have to strive and struggle to reach there? And will it involve a lot of bloodshed on the way? Because historically, people have said that only through wars the orders change. But can we have peaceful change to a multipolar order without by avoiding wars and avoiding these confrontations? Your thoughts?
No, I should think so. I should think so that it definitely is eminently possible, because the sort of instruments of war, the weapons of war that are available with the different countries today, they are much more lethal. They are much more harmful. For instance, as far as nuclear weapons are concerned, the chemical, biological weapons that are concerned. We have seen some of the military parades. There have been very, very advanced weaponry that is available with different countries. But we have also seen that, all this advanced weaponry, whatever Russia has been able to use against Ukraine, it has not been able to wipe out the spirit of liberty, of independence, of resistance.
Yeah.
So I think what can be said with some degree of confidence that change is very much in the air. But which direction that change is going to go and how that change is going to take place, I think that is a big question mark still. And we will really have to wait and see as to how it goes. We'll really have to wait and see as to how different countries react to whatever is happening. But definitely, as far as India is concerned, I think India faces headwinds, faces challenges. But there are a number of tailwinds also. There are a number of strengths that India has. And I feel confident that India would be able to deal with all these changes, all this turmoil and turbulence, the flux that is taking place. Because I think in addition to the strengths that we have spoken about, I think what India is doing in the face of whether it is on the border issue with China, with Pakistan, as far as geoeconomics is concerned, as far as the tariffs, the 50% tariffs from our largest trade partner, that is concerned, I think the moves that we have taken to increase domestic consumption so that the companies, enterprises that were exporting to other countries, to the United States and others, that they are able to find better markets, radical economic reforms in terms of GST changes that are taking. I think India is with front foot. It is dealing with all these challenges.
Absolutely. Viewers, Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar says India is on the front foot, and this is actually not just us nationalists saying it. Globally, the consensus view is that if there is one country that is in a position to really fast forward the shift to a multipolar world order, that is India. We have spoken about all the strengths of India and how it is ideally positioned, both through its policies, through its culture and heritage and ideas, and also through its economic growth and geostrategic positioning. You find that it has an ideal pathway to great power status. But for that to be achieved, we will need to see how all the other players react to India's rise, and we are very hopeful of maintaining positive relations with the great powers, avoiding war with our northern neighbor, China, and of course, parallelly improving our currently strained relations with the United States. But there are so many other power centers, and the key point, to go back to our External Affairs Minister's comment, is cooperation among key states is pivotal, and that is where we need to go, and we need to focus on that, because by these strategic partnerships that India has, we have a good chance of making it to the top echelons. So let me thank Ambassador Sajjanhar always for unpacking complex phenomena in a simple way for our audiences. Thank you so much for being with me, sir.
Thank you, Professor. Always a pleasure.
Viewers, multipolar world order is work in progress. It's not already complete. There are huge gaps between China and the US and the rest, which are rising. But the gaps are going to close. So we have to watch the next 5 to 10 years. And we need to pilot India's rise. That is our mission here, to make sure that India becomes acknowledged as a leading power or a great power in the world. And all our energies are focused on that. But we need your support. We need the support not only of Indians, but also of the international community who believes that India can make a difference to create a fairer and a more democratic world order. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again next time. Until then, take care.